Hi guys, to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making mini holiday pies. Now they're not just for the holidays because they are so delicious, but since we're making a pumpkin flavored and a chocolate hazelnut flavored, I think those are pretty festive if you ask me. We're gonna call them holiday pies for now, but you can definitely serve these all year round. You can make them ahead and freeze them before you bake them, which makes for such easy, stress-free entertaining. And we're just doing pumpkin and chocolate today, but the flavor options are endless, and I'm going to list as many as I can on the blog post. So after you watch this video, make sure you check that out for some more ideas. Let's get started. So I have my mixer here with the flat beater or the paddle attachment, and I'm making basically a shortbread crust. If you've made my shortbread cookies, they are so good, and they make a delicious crust for these pies, and it's so easy to make. A few basic ingredients. Starts off with three sticks of butter, which is 3/4 of a pound, and I start off with unsalted butter always when making desserts. To that, I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of confectioner sugar, also known as powdered sugar, and 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, a little bit of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon, and some pure vanilla extract. 2 teaspoons is good. And then I'm going to turn the mixer on low first. Once it starts going, I'm going to increase the heat to medium and then to high until this is all nice and fluffy and incorporated. In between mixing or beating, you want to go in, first of all, stop the machine, and go in with a spatula and scrape down the sides of the bowl so that way everything mixes evenly. Okay, next, the last ingredient is 3 cups of all-purpose flour. So I'm going to add 1 cup at a time. Once that's incorporated, I'm going to add the remaining 2. And that's it. Once it's all incorporated, this is what the dough should look like. It should be very easy to work with, kind of soft. And your shortbread dough is ready. You want to have 2, what are these called? Cupcake pans ready. And we're going to line them with little parchment papers. So line both cupcake pans with parchment paper, even if you have non-stick pans. This step is a must, so that way you can get these little pies out later on and you're not fighting with them. Okay, a little kitchen scale is going to come in handy because you want to make sure that everything is around the same size. You need about 1.4 or 1.5 ounces. That is about 39 to 40 grams. Now, this is the size that you're looking for if you don't have a little kitchen scale. I would say this is the size of a clementine. It's the best I can describe it. Okay, so I measured out 21 little balls for the crust. You could measure out 24 if you wanted to make them without a little topping, but I did save some of the dough because we're going to make a little crumble topping, which you're going to see after we form the crust and after we fill them. So the pumpkin ones they're not going to have a topping, but the ones that I'm going to fill with chocolate, it's going to be like a chocolate hazelnut Nutella type spread. Those are going to have a little bit of topping. It breaks the sweetness and it just tastes so good. So with your finger, you're just going to want to spread the dough out evenly to fill the inside of the border of the little paper liners, just like this. You want to do it as even as possible. This is what the inside is going to look like. It's just going to coat the inside of the paper. You want to make sure you're not packing it in and making a really fat bottom layer. Try to make it even. And the dough is very easy to work with, so this shouldn't be hard at all. So the crusts are ready. If you're making the pumpkin flavored ones, now's the time to make the pumpkin pie filling. And this is the same pumpkin pie filling that I use for my phyllo pumpkin pie and for my pumpkin pie tarts. And it starts off with a package of cream cheese that's nice and soft. You want to make sure that it's soft and at room temperature. If you forgot to take it out of your fridge, then you can pop it in the microwave for about 15 seconds. I'm also adding some melted unsalted butter. You can use soft butter. It doesn't have to be melted, but I warmed it too much and it did melt. We're going to add a little pinch of salt, a cup of granulated sugar, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, and we're going to mix this until everything is nice and smooth. So make sure to go in with a spatula to mix everything well that's stuck to the sides and to the bottom. That way everything is well incorporated. Now the next thing that we're adding are 3 egg yolks. You can save the whites for something else, some meringue cookies maybe. And you also want to make sure that the egg yolks and everything that's going in needs to be room temperature. and mix that until it's incorporated. That looks good. Now we're gonna add the pumpkin puree. I buy canned pumpkin puree. If you're getting it from the supermarket and you're not making your own, make sure that you're buying canned pumpkin puree and not pumpkin pie filling. Canned pumpkin puree should only be one ingredient, and it should be cooked pumpkin and nothing else. And then the last ingredient is a cup of warm milk. Give that a mix. And that's it. The filling is ready. Again, go in with the spatula, give everything a nice mix. Make sure it's nice and smooth and nothing is stuck to the bottom or the sides. And that's it. So I have a little jar or container of chocolate hazelnut spread. You can make your own or use your favorite store-bought variety. And then we have the pumpkin pie filling. This is extra pumpkin pie filling. You're gonna have leftovers for sure. So you could either make a double batch of this or store this in the refrigerator for 3 or 4 days. So let's start with the pumpkin. I have an ice cream scoop that's gonna make it very easy just to pour in here into these little shells. And you wanna fill them all the way up to the top. And I'm sure you'll do a much neater job than I just did with the pumpkin. I kind of dripped it all over the place. Now you're gonna take a little scoopful of the chocolate hazelnut spread. And with the chocolate hazelnut spread, you don't have to go all the way up to the top because this is already super rich, unless you want to, of course. And also, it's gonna get a little bit of a topping. So this just needs one little scoop, and this ice cream scoop does the trick. If you want something a little more grown up and more gourmet, you can use chocolate ganache instead. Just make your own, and then just either let it cool or pour some in the center. That's gonna be a little less sweet than this. This is Nutella or chocolate hazelnut spread is super sweet, but it's so decadent and delicious. Okay, so now to make the topping, you're just gonna break off little pieces and they'll stand up right on top of the filling. You could do 3, 4, you can crumble it up if you prefer it that way. I just like to pinch off little pieces of shortbread dough just like that and kind of stand them up on top. And there you have it. It looks super cute. Again, more flavor combinations and options are going to be listed on the blog post. So at this point, you could do 2 things. If you're baking them the same day, then you're going to want to freeze them for about 20 minutes so they can chill, and that way the crust sets a little bit. They'll bake a little bit better that way. And if you're going to do that, put them in the freezer, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and then bake them for about 45 minutes or until the crust is golden and until the pumpkin filling sets. That's going to take about 45 minutes, like I said. But if you're freezing them for like a make-ahead dessert, then let them sit in the freezer until they're solid, basically. And then you can take them and transfer them either, you could leave them in the freezer in the pan, but you would want to wrap the pan in plastic and foil so that way they don't get freezer burned or absorb any smells from the freezer. You could also lift them out of the pan and put them in an airtight container, a freezer-safe container, or some freezer-safe bags, and then you just bake them off frozen whenever you're ready to use them. At 350 degrees Fahrenheit, it's probably going to take an hour for them to bake once they're frozen, but all of those steps are going to be on the written recipe on the blog post. Then you're going to take the leftover pumpkin pie filling and you could transfer it into a container and you could use it within 4 days. You can make another pumpkin pie or more of these little mini pies. It is up to you. You could even bake the custard in a little ramekin until it's set and just have a little nice pumpkin cream ready for your coffee. So once the little pies come out of the oven, I'm going to show you what they look like. So the mini pies are ready. They took exactly 45 minutes in the oven to bake and they were done. The pumpkin filling filled ones are gonna rise up a little bit, and then as they sit at room temperature, they are gonna sink in and fall, but they're still gonna look rustic and they're gonna be perfectly delicious, but that's what you're gonna look for. The ones with the crumble on top, they're gonna get more golden. For some reason, they always do. And the pumpkin pie, the crust is usually a little bit more on the pale side, but have no fear because all the way on the bottom, they are nice and golden and they're perfectly cooked. They're not gonna be undercooked or anything. The pumpkin pie filled ones do taste better once they're chilled. So if you do have time, either stick them in the freezer for a little while until they're nice and cold, or if you're making them the day ahead of time, refrigerate them and they'll be perfect. The ones with the hazelnut filling do not need to be refrigerated. They could sit at room temperature because there's no egg or milk in them or anything like that, so they will be fine. And the chocolate filled ones, as a matter of fact, before you serve them, do warm them up a little bit because the chocolate should be a little bit melted and gooey in the center. It makes it taste even better. Make some coffee, put this on the table, and your guests are going to love you. It is time to take a bite, and of course I have to taste both. Let's start with the chocolate, and just look at how perfect and golden it is all around, and the center is still a little bit soft. This is insanely good. The chocolate hazelnut filling is soft and still a little warm. The crispy cookie on the bottom and on the top just gives it the perfect little crunch and buttery bite. It's absolutely amazing. Now it's time to taste the pumpkin filled one, a little pumpkin pie. It's like a holiday party in my mouth. Delicious. My pumpkin pie filling is in between a custard and a cheesecake. Lighter than a cheesecake and a little bit denser than a custard. Goes so well with the shortbread crust because it's so creamy, the filling, and velvety and good and smooth. And then the crust is nice and a little bit crispy and also buttery and not too hard. It's just perfect. Your guests are gonna love this. Make sure you give it a try. All of the ingredients are in the description box down below. If you want the printable recipe, head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com. You should head on over there anyway because I'm gonna give you lots more flavor combinations that you can make, and you will be a happy camper, I tell you that. You guys are gonna love this one. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you have any special recipe requests, post them in the comments, and I'll see you all next time. Yes,